November 9, 2005, in Robinson, Texas, the day began like any other. A small town south of Waco, where neighbors waved from their porches and children rode bikes in quiet streets. But at 6:11 a.m., that peace was shattered. A panicked woman called 911, her voice urgent, shaking. She said she had found her husband in bed, covered in blood, barely breathing. She claimed someone had broken in, stolen firearms, and slipped away into the night. At first, it sounded like a tragic home invasion. But as detectives began to peel back the layers, they uncovered a story of love turned cold, money troubles, and a chilling betrayal. And the trail would lead them to a quiet rural pond, hiding a deadly secret. This is the story of Keith and Darlene Gentry, a marriage that began with hope and devotion, but ended in one of the most shocking crimes in Texas history. Darlene Doskasil was born on November 2, 1974. She was the middle of three daughters, smart, social, and beautiful. Her classmates called her Texas Beauty Queen, even without a pageant crown. Blonde hair, bright smile, a warmth that made everyone feel seen. She graduated from Yo High School in 1993, studied dental assisting in Waco, and dreamed of becoming a nurse. Keith Gentry, born just 2 months earlier, was her opposite in personality, quiet, steady, reliable. The kind of man you didn't just like, you trusted. He grew up in Robinson, graduated high school there, and worked his way into a stable job as an engineering assistant. The two met at Texas State Technical College, and the connection was instant. Family gatherings, weekends out with friends, late-night conversations. It wasn't long before both families were certain they'd marry. But in 1997, Keith hesitated. He wasn't ready for marriage. They broke up, and Darlene moved to Dallas to start fresh. Life in the city was chaotic. A stolen car, an apartment that didn't feel like home. Within a year, she was back in Central Texas. And fate, or maybe unfinished business, brought her face to face with Keith again. This time, there was no hesitation. In 1999, Keith proposed. They married, bought their first home, and began planning for a family. By 2005, Keith and Darlene were parents to 3 boys, Chase, Cody, and baby Cade. They lived in a comfortable home next door to Keith's parents, the perfect setup for raising kids in a safe, tight-knit community. Keith's job sometimes kept him on the road, but when he was home, he was devoted to his sons. Darlene worked as a nurse, well-respected, competent, and admired by her patients. But behind closed doors, life wasn't as effortless as it appeared. Keith's travel-heavy job strained their relationship. Darlene felt the pressure of juggling work, 3 children, and a household alone. In an effort to ease the burden, Keith took a lower-paying desk job to stay close to home. It solved one problem, but created another. Money became tight. Keith worried Darlene spent beyond their means, dinners out, home decor, hosting gatherings. The arguments grew sharper, more frequent. To friends, they still looked like the golden couple. But tension was building, quietly, dangerously. At 6:11 a.m. on November 9th, Darlene's trembling voice reached the 911 dispatcher. Her husband was in bed, covered in blood, gurgling, she said, with pink foam bubbling from his mouth. She told them she'd slept in another room with the boys because the baby had been restless. When she got up, she noticed the back door wide open. Several guns were missing from the cabinet. Paramedics found Keith still alive but unresponsive, a gunshot wound to the head. He was rushed to Hillcrest Baptist Medical Center, placed on life support. 2 days later, he was gone. Police began piecing together the scene. Something didn't fit. No signs of forced entry. Several, missing. Guns stacked neatly outside. Only Keith and Darlene knew how to access the locked gun cabinet. And Darlene, a trained nurse, hadn't tried CPR. Darlene told detectives she'd been out with friends that night. When she got home, Keith was upset. He'd found a restaurant receipt. They argued. She left to cool off, then returned, apologized, and slept with the kids. She said she heard the dog bark at 5:15 a.m. but ignored it. Forensics disagreed. The blood pooling and Keith's condition suggested the shooting happened much earlier than she claimed. Then came the discovery in the kitchen trash. A pair of latex gloves, inside them, a .22 caliber shell casing, traces of gunshot residue. DNA from both Keith and Darlene. Detectives also uncovered a possible motive: Keith's life insurance policy, worth between $500,000 and $750,000. 19 days later, Darlene was arrested for murder. But her in-laws, Keith's own parents, posted her bail, convinced she couldn't be guilty. After her release, Darlene approached a local landowner, Robert Pavevela, about buying property with a pond. She said Keith had dreamed of taking their boys fishing. This would honor his memory. Weeks later, she called with an odd request. Could he fill in the pond? Suspicious, Pavevela contacted police. Divers searched and found a .22 caliber revolver, the murder weapon. But police needed to catch her connected to it. So they asked Pavevela to help set a trap. He told Darlene he was draining the pond. The next day, under hidden cameras, Darlene arrived in waders, poking at the exact spot where the gun had been. It was the final piece detectives needed. In February 2007, Darlene stood trial for first-degree murder. The prosecution leaned heavily on the surveillance footage from the pond, the latex gloves, and the staged burglary. Her defense called no witnesses. After 5 days, the jury returned a verdict: guilty. She was sentenced to 60 years in prison. Eligible for parole in 2037. Keith's parents were awarded permanent custody of the 3 boys. Darlene hasn't spoken to them since 2005. Keith Gentry was remembered as a loyal husband, a devoted father, and a man who put family before everything else. For Robinson, Texas, the case left a scar, and a reminder that sometimes, the real danger doesn't come from outside the home, but from within.